very clear is coming down. It's downtrend, and overall stock market for China is
cross-listed state-owned company in New York, Hong Kong, and Shanghai. The company announced plans to delist from US Stock Exchange after the SEC warned that it was at risk of getting kicked off for possible non-compliance with audit rules. Right here, you should know that this is a China state-owned enterprise. If you don't do well leading one of the China state-run enterprises, you won't just get fired. You will also be prosecuted for corruption charges, whether the charges have any basis in fact or not. High risk, high reward, right? This is what happened to the former chairman of this company, Jiang Jiemin, sentenced to 16 years of prison. Present to you the one and only PetroChina, China's largest oil company. PetroChina Company Limited is a Chinese oil and gas company and is the listed arm of the state-owned China National Petroleum Corporation (CNPC), headquartered in Dongcheng District, Beijing. The company is currently Asia's largest oil and gas producer and was China's second biggest oil producer in 2006. It engages in a wide range of activities related to oil and natural gas and provides sustainable energy for the economic and social development. PetroChina traded in Hong Kong and New York. The mainland enterprise announced its plans to issue stock in Shanghai in November 2007 and subsequently entered the constituent of the SSE 50 index. In the 2024 Global 2000, PetroChina was ranked as the 32nd largest public company in the world. PetroChina generated revenue of 2.6 trillion yuan in 2021, up from 1.9 trillion yuan in the previous year. Based on revenue alone, PetroChina was the world's second largest oil and gas company in 2021. PetroChina was established as a joint stock company with limited liabilities under the company law of the People's Republic of China on 5th November 1999 as part of the restructuring of CNPC. In restructuring CNPC injected into PetroChina most of the assets and liabilities of CNPC relating to its exploration and production, refining and marketing, chemicals and natural gas businesses because of Sinopec's link to Sudan through parent company China Petrochemical Corporation. Several institutional investors such as Harvard and Yale decided in 2005 to divest from Sinopec. Sudan divestment efforts have continued to be concentrated on PetroChina since then. Fidelity Investment, after pressure from activist groups, have also announced in a filing in the US that it had sold 91% of its American Depository Receipts ADR in PetroChina in the first quarter of 2007. Why does that happen? Is Sinopec related to PetroChina? As you can see here, both companies are controlled by State-Owned Assets Supervision and Administration Commission of the State Council. This is what we mean by state-run. At the beginning of May 2007, the company announced it had made China's largest oil find in a decade off the country's northeast coast, in an oil field named Jidong Nanbao. In May 2008, these expectations were lowered. On 7 November 2007, Hang Seng Indexes company announced that PetroChina will be a Hang Seng Index constituent stock, effective 10 December 2007. PetroChina also came under scrutiny from international organizations from its part in trading with the Sudanese government as it undertook the war in Darfur. On 19 August 2009, PetroChina signed a $50 billion deal with ExxonMobil to purchase liquefied natural gas from the Govan field in Western Australia, considered the largest contract ever signed between China and Australia, which ensures China a steady supply of LNG fuel for 20 years and also forms as China's largest supply of relatively clean energy. This deal has been formally secured, and despite relations between Australia and China being at their lowest point in years following the Rio Tinto case and the granting of visas to Rabia Kadir to visit Australia, PetroChina's Dushanzi District refinery became fully operational on 24 September 2009. The refinery is China's largest refinery with an annual capacity of 10 million tons of oil and 1 million tons of ethylene. The refinery is an integral part of China's ambitions to import oil from Kazakhstan. In February 2011, PetroChina agreed to pay $5.4 billion for a 49% stake in Canada's Duvernay shale assets, owned by Encana. It was China's biggest investment in shale gas in date. PetroChina's subsidiary in Canada is named PetroChina Canada and has an office in Calgary. It operates under the direction of Li Zhiming. China signed a deal in 2016 with the Nepal Oil Corporation to sell 30% of the total Nepalese petroleum consumption. China plans to build a pipeline to Nepal's Pachkal, along with a storage depot. In 2017, the shares of PetroChina upped after the rise of natural gas prices for commercial use. In February 2019, as part of the Aero Energy joint venture with Royal Dutch Shell, the company was granted leases for 10 billion Australian dollar towards the Surat project in Queensland, Australia. Liaoyang Petrochemical Corp, a unit of PetroChina in May 2019, exported to Europe for the first time. PetroChina posted a 4 billion profit in 2019. In November 2005, one of PetroChina's chemical plants exploded in Jilin, China, resulting in 100 tons of benzene, which is a carcinogen and toxic, pouring into the Songhua River. There was a slick of chemicals that spanned 80 kilometers. Harbin, which is another city along the Songhua River, had to cut the water supply for almost 4 million people for 5 days. More than 60 people were injured, 5 died, and 1 person was missing due to the incident. The spill reached as far as Khabarovsk, Russia, where residents stock up on bottled water. The Russian city tried filtering its water from toxic substances, but couldn't guarantee the water was safe. China's environmental agency fined the company 1 million yuan for its pollution, which was the maximum fine that can be handed out in China for breaking environmental law. The Chinese government said that clearing out the aftermath would require $1 billion. Li Zhaoxin, the Chinese foreign minister at that time, issued a public apology to Russia due to the incident. The Chinese press responded harshly to the authorities' response to the disaster. In 2014, PetroChina subsidiary Lanzhou Petrochemical was responsible for ethylene and ammonia leaks, benzene contamination of water supplies, and air pollution in Lanzhou. City officials criticized the company and demanded an apology. On January 19, 2022, Chinese authorities punished PetroChina subsidiary PetroChina Fuel Oil for alleged oil trade inconsistencies that severely disrupted oil products market order, facilitated blind development of outdated production capacity at independent refineries, caused losses in government tax revenue indirectly, said the National Development and Reform Commission. In 2011, Earth Rights International accused PetroChina of complicity in serious human rights abuses in Burma, a country known for militarily furthering its economic interests through the use of forced labor. In September 2013, Jiang Jiemin, a former chairman of PetroChina, was abruptly removed from his role as director of the State-Owned Assets Supervision and Administration Commission of the State's Council, an investigator for corruption and abuse of power. Along with 4 other senior oil executives, Jiang was considered an ally of corrupt former security chief Zhou Yongkang and part of a group of officials that have political ties with Zhou. On October 12, 2015, the court found Jiang guilty on all counts, including accepting bribes, possessing dark assets, and abusing its power. He was sentenced for 16 years in prison. Oftentimes in China, corruption charges are trumped up to remove political opponents. In Jiang's case, however, the allegations might be true. One thing is for certain: his management of PetroChina and CNPC was not successful. The stock price of PetroChina hit an all-time high of 1966 Hong Kong dollar in November 2007, shortly after he became chairman. Since then, it went down, concurrent with the general decline in the Chinese market, to 8.6 Hong Kong dollar. a loss of 56%. Chinese scholar Cai Shen-hun thinks that is the reason why PetroChina and CNPC spend so much on capital expenditure and that it provides the link to the corruption charges. According to Chai, the executives around Jiang Zemin use company funds to buy equipment from relatives. The main beneficiaries of the case are the in-laws of the higher level official, he writes in his blog. Only for one oil field project, CNPC paid the beneficiaries $800 million. They use overseas organizations to accumulate billions of dollars for their own family. He goes on to explain that in a state-owned company like PetroChina tightly controlled by the Communist Party, high-level executives can tell their subordinates how to spend the money for corporate expansion projects. They have the absolute power to distribute resources, he writes, adding that loopholes in control of financial management make it easy to hide the corruption. In an analysis, he also explores another route to corruption, importing cheap oil from abroad and selling it at above market prices in China to their own people. They import low-price fuel through diplomatic channels and rob the state of large amounts of money through complicated investment at home. In January 2014, the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists published research based on leaked financial records from the British Virgin Islands (BVI), implicating CNPC, PetroChina, Sinopec, and CNOOC in offshore tax evasion. From what we can see earlier, but is it tax evasion or just puppet show? Positive working capital shows that your business has sufficient liquid assets to pay off immediate debts. By contrast, negative working capital shows that you will struggle to pay immediate debts if restricted only to your current assets. As you can see here, it's negative. Main revenue driver is the marketing of refined products. Although in general, PetroChina makes most part of its revenue within China's mainland, when it comes to its main revenue driver, its region outside of mainland China, that contributes to the revenue the most. 1 trillion renminbi liabilities, which incurred the most from head office, only then the exploration and production. And one thing to note, if you know Chinese, always refer to the Chinese version. Today we have Max here. Max is an automatic cash mentor, so he has successfully transferred his quant skills to his students within 1 week time. So Max, what do you think about PetroChina?
PetroChina, well, from the data I can see, the long-term prospect actually is going down. And if we were to look at FTSE China A50 overview the prospect, potentially it can it's quite volatile, highly volatile in fact. Okay, the highest it goes is 23,000 points, and the lowest it goes is around 3,500 points. So potentially it can come down to 6,000 point, 10,000 points, 6,000 points, or even 3,600 points. So especially if we were to look at the shorter term time frame, like for example time horizon like 1 year and below, it is very clear it's coming down. It's downtrend, and overall stock market for China is also downtrend within 1 year time. So the nearer term, shorter term prospect.
Okay, so what kind of advice will you give to our viewers here regarding PetroChina?
Okay, obviously when things are coming down, you can profit by shorting the either the index or the stock. If we were to consider other factors like, for example, the cost of shorting and also liquidity, it might not make economic sense. So you might want to avoid them altogether.
Okay, thank you, Max. Okay, so that's all from us for today. We will see you next time.
See you.